They didn't vanish. They didn't die out. And yet, we call them lost civilizations. Around 1177 BCE, the most powerful empires in the Mediterranean, the Hittites, the Mycenaeans, the great city-states of Canaan and Syria, all collapsed within decades of each other. Palaces burned, writing systems disappeared, populations plummeted. For centuries afterward, Greece fell silent. No grand temples, no written records, just scattered villages clinging to survival in what historians call the Greek Dark Ages. But here's what they don't tell you. The people never left. The Maya built cities that rivaled anything in the ancient world. Tikal, Palenque, Copan. Then suddenly, between 750 and 900 CE, they abandoned them. Massive stone pyramids were swallowed by jungle. Reservoirs that once sustained millions ran dry. The narrative you heard is simple. They disappeared. Except, millions of Maya people are alive today. Their languages are still spoken. Their descendants never went anywhere. The Indus Valley civilization covered 1 million square kilometers, larger than ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia combined. They had standardized weights, grid-planned cities, and sophisticated water systems. Then, around 1900 BCE, the cities emptied. The script was forgotten. The seals stopped being carved. But genetic studies tell a different story. The Harappans didn't vanish. They're the direct ancestors of modern South Asians. Their civilization didn't end, it transformed. So if these people didn't disappear, what actually happened? And why do we keep telling the story wrong? When you hear civilizational collapse, you probably picture Pompeii, a city frozen in ash, destroyed overnight. It's dramatic, it's final. It's also almost never how complex societies actually end. Joseph Tainter spent decades studying this question. His conclusion? Collapse isn't death, it's simplification. Complex societies are expensive to maintain. They require massive infrastructure, specialized labor, centralized control. As a society grows, the cost of maintaining that complexity increases, but the benefits don't keep pace. Think of it like this. When a Bronze Age empire controlled trade routes, maintained a standing army, and supported a palace bureaucracy, it needed constant resources, tribute, trade, agricultural surplus. When any of those inputs failed, drought, invasion, economic disruption, the whole system became unsustainable. So what happens? The empire doesn't explode, it simplifies. Cities become villages, palaces become farms. Writing systems, tools of bureaucracy, disappear because they're no longer needed. The population doesn't vanish, they just stop living in a way that looks like civilization to us. This is the key to understanding what happened to the Bronze Age Mediterranean, the Maya, the Indus Valley civilization, and dozens of other so-called lost civilizations. They didn't disappear, they adapted. Before the collapse, the Eastern Mediterranean was thriving. Diplomatic letters between kings, preserved in the Amarna archives, read like a Bronze Age email chain. Kings called each other brother. They exchanged gifts, traded copper and tin, shipped grain across the sea. The whole region functioned as one interconnected economy, which is exactly why it was so fragile. Modern systems theory tells us that tightly coupled networks are vulnerable to cascading failures. When systems are interdependent, a disruption in one node spreads everywhere. In the Bronze Age, that node was tin. Bronze requires two metals, copper and tin. Copper was abundant, tin was not. It came from distant sources, Afghanistan, possibly even Central Asia. When that supply was cut, the entire Bronze Age economy seized up. No tin meant no bronze. No bronze meant no weapons, no tools, no trade goods. But the tin shortage was just one stressor. Paleoclimatology reveals something worse: a sharp drop in rainfall beginning around 1200 BCE. Pollen samples and sediment cores confirm widespread drought across the region. In Anatolia, the Hittite capital Hattusa shows signs of evacuation before destruction. People left because there was no food. In the Levant, letters from the city of Ugarit, found in destruction layers, describe famine. There is famine in your house. You will wish to preserve the living soul of your country. Then there's the earthquakes. Archaeological sites across the Mediterranean, Mycenae, Troy, Ugarit, show destruction layers consistent with seismic activity. Not one earthquake, but a sequence, an earthquake storm, triggered by a major fault slip that cascaded across the region over decades. City walls crumbled, defenses weakened, just as the drought hit, just as the tin supply failed. And then came the Sea Peoples. For over a century, the Sea Peoples were portrayed as marauding pirates, a coordinated naval force that swept through the Mediterranean, sacking cities from Anatolia to Egypt. Egyptian reliefs at Medinet Habu depict them as warriors: the Peleset, the Checker, the Shekelesh, the Denyen. But look closer at those same reliefs. The warriors are accompanied by ox carts, women, children. This isn't an invasion fleet, it's a migration. The Sea Peoples weren't destroyers, they were refugees. Climate collapse in the Aegean and western Anatolia forced populations to flee. They moved south into the Levant, a region already weakened by drought and earthquakes. Some fought, some settled, some were absorbed. Recent genome evidence confirms this. DNA analysis from the ancient city of Ashkelon, biblical home of the Philistines, reveals a sudden influx of European and Aegean genetic markers in the 12th century BCE. The Peleset mentioned in the Egyptian texts, they're the Philistines, migrants from the Aegean who settled on the coast of Canaan. And here's the crucial detail: that European genetic signature diluted rapidly. Within a few generations, it was absorbed into the local population. The invaders didn't replace the locals, they intermarried, they assimilated. The Bronze Age didn't end because of a single catastrophe. It ended because multiple systems failed at once: drought, earthquakes, economic collapse, mass migration. No single empire could handle all of it, so they simplified. The palace economies vanished, literacy was lost, the population scattered. But they didn't disappear.
Fast forward 2,000 years. The Maya lowlands, 800 CE. Cities like Tikal housed tens of thousands. Massive reservoirs captured rainfall. Multi-story pyramids reached toward the sky. The Maya had engineered their environment to its absolute limit. And that was the problem. The Yucatan Peninsula is porous limestone. Rain doesn't pool, it drains straight through the bedrock. Survival depended entirely on capturing and storing seasonal rainfall in massive reservoirs. This worked brilliantly, until it didn't. Oxygen isotope analysis from cave stalagmites reveals a devastating pattern. Between 800 and 1000 CE, the region experienced multi-decadal megadroughts. Precipitation dropped by 41% to 54%. But here's the feedback loop. To build those temples, the Maya burned limestone to make stucco. To feed growing populations, they cleared forests for farmland. Deforestation reduced evapotranspiration, the process by which trees return moisture to the atmosphere. Less moisture meant less rain. The Maya inadvertently amplified their own drought. When the reservoirs ran dry, the political system collapsed. Maya kingship was based on divine legitimacy. The Kuhul Athao, or divine lord, was supposed to ensure rain and fertility. When the rain stopped, so did belief in the system. Evidence from sites like Dos Pilas shows frantic defensive construction, stone ripped from temples to build walls, cities fortified against each other as resources dwindled, warfare spiked, and then the cities emptied. But not uniformly. The northern lowlands, sites like Chichen Itza, thrived. They had access to cenotes, underground water sources, different geography, different political structures. The collapse wasn't total, it was selective. And the people? They migrated. North to the Yucatan, south to the highlands. The civilization didn't end, it relocated. The Indus Valley civilization is the most misunderstood of all. For decades, its decline was blamed on Aryan invasions, a theory now completely discredited. The real cause was environmental. Around 2200 BCE, a global climatic event called the 4.2 kiloyear event weakened the Indian summer monsoon. The monsoon shifted eastward. The rivers that sustained Harappan cities, especially the Ghaggar-Hakra system, began to dry up. A 2023 study identified droughts lasting nearly 200 years. Mohenjo-Daro, Harappa, these dense urban centers became impossible to sustain. So the Harappans left. They migrated toward the Himalayan foothills and the Gangetic Plain, where rainfall was more reliable. But this migration required a cultural shift. The wheat and barley economy of the Indus floodplains didn't work in the new environment. Instead, they adopted drought-resistant crops, millets and rice. These crops supported smaller, decentralized villages, not sprawling cities. The urban infrastructure disappeared. The Indus script, used for trade and administration, was no longer needed. Standardized weights vanished. But the people, they're still here. Ancient DNA from the site of Rakhigarhi confirms it. A woman buried there around 2500 BCE carried no steppe ancestry, only a mix of Iranian and Southeast Asian hunter-gatherer lineages. Genetic studies of modern populations, like the Roar community in northern India, show direct descent from these ancestral North Indians. The Harappans didn't vanish. They became the genetic and cultural foundation of modern South Asia. Their civilization dissolved, but their legacy endured. From the Late Bronze Age to the Maya to the Indus Valley, the pattern is the same. Complex societies don't disappear, they transform. When the cost of complexity exceeds its benefits, when droughts hit, trade routes fail, or infrastructure collapses, populations adapt. They simplify, they migrate, they survive. The Greek Dark Ages gave way to the Iron Age and Classical Greece. The Maya migrants became the ancestors of the Hopi and Zuni. The Harappans became South Asians. Civilizations aren't static monuments, they're living processes. And when we call them lost, we're not describing reality, we're describing our own failure to recognize transformation. Because the people never left, they just stopped building the things we recognize as civilization. They stopped writing on clay tablets and carving inscriptions in stone. They stopped building pyramids and palaces. But they kept living, they kept adapting, and they're still here. So the next time you hear about a lost civilization, ask yourself, lost to whom? The cities may have crumbled, the writing may have stopped, but the people, the descendants of those so-called lost civilizations, are walking the earth today. They didn't vanish, they endured. And that's the real story.
history forgot to tell.